board meeting please come to order? Call the roll.
DeBella? Adel?
Here.
Avedisian?
Here.
Buell? Bush? Curry? Drake?
Here.
Gardeau?
Here.
Gentile?
Here.
Healy?
Here.
Hoffman? Hoheb? Holloway? Yano?
Here.
LaChance?
Here.
Lester?
Here.
Lewis? Magnan? Maniscalco? Mandyke? Murata? Payne? Patel?
Here.
Potosky? Taylor? Torres?
Here.
Vecino?
Here.
Wolf? Carrier? We have a quorum.
Okay. Pledge allegiance. Stand. Approval of the minutes of September 7th, 2022. Is there a motion? Moved and second. Are there any additions or deletions?
Commissioner Patel to John.
Is it a,
That was Commissioner Patel.
John, did you make that correction?
Commissioner Patel, John Myrtle. What we were speaking about, that was a draft of a transcript of the meeting that you had seen. That had been corrected at that time, and the section of dialogue that was incorrectly attributed to you is not in the minutes. It was a separate document, and it's been corrected.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Item 5, public comments relative to agenda items. Go ahead.
No, please. You're on down. A public comment.
Judy Allen, West Hartford. I'd like to comment on the appointments to committees, the approval of the chairman to attend a seminar, and the proposed budget. One commissioner is being appointed to the Committee on Technology, which has met only once. With one new member, I'm hoping that's a sign that this committee has work to do and will meet regularly. Even if a committee has no pressing business, it can still meet for education about the work of that committee, a real discussion about what commissioners need in order to perform their duties. If
Use your microphone.
I'm not?
Yeah, you might not be.
Cannot hear clear.
Could you adjust that for her so it gets closer to her?
Is this better?
That's better.
Is that better? Go ahead.
That is slightly better, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
If memory serves, at one meeting of the Committee on Technology, there was a decision made to have a staff create a white paper outlining the workings of the district's sewage plants to include financial information, including limits as to future plans. I'm wondering if this has been written and if commissioners have had a chance to read it, if it's available to the public.
On Friday.
White papers like these could be developed for commissioners about many topics. It might cut down on the need for time and repetition in bringing commissioners up to speed about many things. If these papers were to be made public, they could also help your customers learn more about the work of providing clean water and sewer services. In tonight's revised agenda, there is a proposed allocation for Chairman DeBella to attend a seminar concerning the use of biosolids that in Connecticut have been banned for use as fertilizer. It seems to me that attending this conference is something that should have passed through the Committee on Technology. Is it something that will advance the work of this committee? In the future, I hope a better process can be followed to justify attendance at seminars, especially for staff. I did a quick look at last year's budget and totaled the line items for seminars, conferences, and dues and memberships. It came to almost $300,000, and I'm assuming that's primarily for administration. Each year I look at expenses like these and wonder how that money is spent. Can it be justified? In the budget for 2020, there was an increase of 46.74% for dues and memberships, and no reason why. Just what is the MDC a member of? Who do you pay dues to? Thank you.
Further comments?
Good evening. Joseph Shareko, Independent Consumer Advocate. I just wanted to briefly comment on agenda item number 8. I understand that a federal government relations draft summary memorandum has been distributed to the commissioners this evening, and I first of all would like to say I find it very informative, and I think that it's very useful for purposes of knowing what legislative initiatives the government relations contractors and other folks are pursuing. I would be interested in knowing, on behalf of the public, more about some of the low-income relief programs, in particular LIWOP. I know there was some advocacy in the past with sending out shutoff notices and other payment-related notices. My understanding, though, is that DSS is still accepting applications for LIWOP assistance, so I would hope that those efforts continue, and I would be happy to work with staff to make sure that customers are aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Further comments? My favorite one. This is my friend.
Good evening, Alyssa Peterson, ratepayer from Hartford. I'd like to speak on Agenda Item 13, Section A. I believe that any proposed reforms regarding a code of ethics disclosure be quadrupled relative to scrutiny. Such disclosure must not only include commissioners, but should include your vendors, as in attorneys and employees. I've watched your August and September board meetings online with interest and paid special attention to commissioners' commentary on MDC land purchases, vendor billing, conflict of interest, and ethics. I've truly appreciated listening to the concerns of Commissioners Payne, Gardo, Gentile, Mandyke, Bush, Patel, and our own Cal Torres from Hartford. The MDC was created by and conferred municipality status by our state legislature, and thus one would expect MDC commissioners, vendors, and employees to follow state ethics laws. Whatever laws or rules are in place, this latest attorney and commissioner's failure of disclosure demonstrates they are toothless. There appears to be no consequences for ethical violations, whether that means referral of a vendor to an oversight board or consumer protection, forced resignation by the offending commissioner, sanctioning by fellow commissioners, or in the case of MDC employees, better oversight and disciplinary action. In addition to the attorney debacle now being professionally pursued by your internal audit committee, whatever disclosure form for item number 13 is being pursued, it must include greater disclosure by MDC employees. It is no secret that the number one beneficiary if Hartford's Brainerd Airport were to close is the MDC. Many years ago, over $1 million of ratepayer funds was spent on the MDC's plans to use that airport land. It's also no secret some of that land is still desired for future energy plant development. As a Hartford resident, I'm a supporter of keeping Brainerd open as we quickly move into the future of electric air travel. Thus, I don't want to find out the amount of hours that your employee, James Sanchez, has spent during his MDC workday on anything related to closing Brainerd Airport, nor do I want to hear his written or public commentary or that of his counsel, aide, or associates. Regardless if he is an elected official, He is an MDC employee first and foremost, and there must be greater ethics disclosure and consequences covering your employees who advocate publicly for any action, of which the MDC is clearly the number one beneficiary. Thank you for listening, and I'm going to hang around and make some other comments at the end. And thank you for all the volunteer work that you do, truly.
Further comments? Okay. Item number 5. I'm sorry, item number 6, report from the district chairman. No report tonight. Item 7, report from the chief executive officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Jellison. So I have one item, and this will answer Mrs. Allen's question. I did finalize the white paper. It was issued to our commissioners on Friday. We'll be more than happy to provide that document to the advocate and any public that would like it. I apologize for the time it took, but it was pretty in-depth, and I'd like to thank Tom Tyler and Chris Levesque for helping me with that. Unfortunately, it's 37 pages, but it's pretty thorough, and we tried to address issues that were in the front of us regarding our multi-hearth incinerators and the regulations around air permitting for those, and new technology that is or isn't available. So I hope everyone had a chance to at least glim through it over the weekend. If not, you have any questions, please let me know. And in regards to Mrs. Allen's question about travels, you know, as you can imagine, COVID changed a lot of things. Lots of seminars that we had in the past are now virtual. Almost every seminar has a virtual component to it. But we have had 12 cases of COVID in less than the last 30 days. So we're mindful of that, so we're trying to keep travel down. We hate to send, as you remember, in 2020, March of 2020, we gave all of our employees 2 weeks of COVID relief, sick time, basically, and then the federal government said after effective April 1st, you have to give them 2 weeks, so we actually gave our employees 4 weeks. So we've been very supportive of our employees and their families as it relates to COVID. So we've got 12 cases right now. We've got 20 employees affected by family members having to stay home to take care of children or or relatives they've been exposed to. So we're trying to restrict as much as we can travel. There is a lot going on in the COVID world right now. So I hope that answers Mrs. Allen's questions.
You got a report?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions of the Chief Executive Officer? Not, obviously, he releases his monthly, right?
Yes.
Monthly. If you do have questions, you read it, feel free to call Scott and contact him relative to whatever you have a concern with in that process. And thank you for addressing Judy Allen's remarks. Report from the District Council, A, update regarding infrastructure funding.
Yes,
you're
thank you.
gonna have-
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Stone, District Council. I've got a few things I want to highlight, and then I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Bonafonte, who will speak to that item A that you referred to. In addition to the general matters that our office is addressing, collections, DPAs, easements, construction claims, and the Clean Water Project, we also have some specific things which I've updated you on a regular basis, which I want to bring you current on. On the Colebrook Dam declaratory judgment action, which we filed with the state DPH, we finally got a scheduling order from the hearing officer. Pre-filed evidence and testimonies due in mid-December. There's a hearing date on January 5th and 6th of 2023, and a decision date by February 3, 2023. So that's moving along quicker now certainly than it was over the summer, but it's moving along. We have those 3 landfill cases. The first landfill case is the oldest one. That's the one that's been cleared for suit. The complaint is being finalized and will be filed in early November. On the second case, which is the tiered rate case, I'll call it, also dealing with the landfill, the 18 months by which the State Claims Commissioner had to make a decision has passed. We gave notice to the General Assembly and the Attorney General's office that 18-month deadline had passed. The Claims Commissioner then had 90 days from that date to make a decision. They've failed to do so, so the case will automatically be referred to one of the temporary deputies who will be assigned to consider our case, similar to the way that the first one was handled, and hopefully the same result. And that would be clearing us for a suit against the state of Connecticut to collect the monies that we feel is due the MDC. The third case is the Buckingham Garage case. That's the most recently filed claim. Oddly enough, unlike the other 2, we did get a scheduling order from the Claims Commissioner, so apparently she's going to handle that, he or she is going to handle that on their own. So we've got a scheduling order. It's due for a hearing in spring of 2023. So that's moving along faster than the other 2. We are finalizing language with bond counsel on an integrated planning resolution. While we have the integrated plan approved by DEEP, there has to be action by this board, closing out prior projects, deauthorizing some prior projects, and moving some prior projects, other projects, to the integrated plan. And we're working on that language. You should have it. Certainly, we're shooting for a November board meeting for you to consider that resolution. The closing of the Manchester land sale is scheduled for this Wednesday. It's not terribly complicated. The closing's in early afternoon. I'll be able to report, hopefully positively, to all of you Wednesday afternoon that the closing went through and we've transferred title and received the consideration that we bargained for in the agreement. And then finally, we've placed who we consider to be the responsible parties for the second or latest Limbrook Road incident with the failed liner. We've put them on notice officially. We've made demand. It's been referred to the insurance carriers for the respective responsible parties, and we're proceeding to pursue reimbursement for our expenses, which I believe at this point, and Chris Levesque will correct me if I'm wrong, are approaching $1.5 million in cost to the MDC in repairing the line and accommodating residents who may have been displaced, et cetera. So that ends my report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Chris, just one question on the issue of the liner. That's not the same company, is it?
It's the same company, the same project, the same liner, and same lining technology.
That's the second time it failed.
Well, that we know of, yes. The first time was, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. In 2018. That's the case that we resolved with your assistance and your approval a few months ago. We were reimbursed $1 million on that claim. This claim is so far, it's proven to be slightly more cost to the MDC than the first one, but it's as we know about it, it's the second claim. Similar problem.
Scott.
A failed liner.
Scott?
Yeah, Scott Jelson. So just a little bit to clarify. So the liner that failed was about 250 some odd feet. And the MDC chose basically to replace that section of pipe, not even try to reline it, because we believe that the host pipe, the old original pipe, was collapsing, so trying to line it would not have helped. We also chose to line all of that liner that was built in that 2018 timeframe because we didn't want to have to worry about this issue occurring again. So we'll work through with legal to determine, how that part of the work is a claim. Really, the only section of liner that failed was 250 feet, but we lined, Chris, how much?
Additional, about 900 feet.
Chris,
Another 900 feet.
can you address it at the microphone so it becomes fact.
Chris Levesque with the MDC. It was about additional 900 feet.
Yeah, so that was not something that we had to do, but given what this community has gone through in the past with this liner, this was a new technology liner that we tried using, UV liner, and we just didn't want to take the chance of another section of this liner failing, so we relined the entire segment of the pipe, so.
Any further questions? Commissioner?
Hi, Commissioner
Bush.
Bush here,
I'm sorry.
from West Hartford. A couple of things. 200 plus or minus feet, 250 feet of the host pipe was replaced. Is that going to be part of the $1.5 million that we're asking for? And if so, do you anticipate that they'd be willing to pay for that part, considering possibly the pipe was bad and maybe that influenced the failure? That's part one.
It's going to be part of our claim. You just hit on what their response might be to the claim, but the bottom line is the hose pipe was sufficient at the time that the project was designed to host this liner. What might have happened between the installation of the liner and today is anyone's guess, but it was intended to be lined. It was lined. It had some structural integrity for a period of time, and then it wasn't the pipe that failed, it was the liner that failed. And the liner failed, in our opinion, as a result of, because of the similar circumstances with the first failure, which is the marriage between the liner and the pipe wasn't properly cured, and that caused the failure. So it's an issue, no question, but our intent is to go after the cost of the pipe as well.
Okay. So the second question, the liner that failed was the liner that used UV light to cure.
Yes.
Yes.
Is there, and then I'm imagining that the new liner, the entire length of the pipe on Lynbrook and part of North Main Street was relined. That new liner is the older steam technology?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, and that new liner actually was applied inside the newer UV technology.
Right.
So really, there's a pipe, there's a UV liner, and then there's a steam liner.
Correct.
So in theory, we're pretty safe from any potential failure you would imagine going forward.
Yes, and to Chris Stone's point, Scott Jellison, to Chris Stone's point, if the UV liner didn't fail, that UV liner pipe, that new pipe inside a pipe should have been able to handle, the flows. So what came first, the chicken or the egg? The UV liner failed, and therefore our hose pipe failed. So that's our position, and granted, they'll have their own position, but we will fight that with the insurance companies.
Okay, and is there any additional areas in Lynbrook, the Lynbrook area, that are still only being serviced by the UV pipe liner?
Chris, I know we have some throughout the district, but do we have any more in Lynbrook?
Yes, there are, Chris Levesque, MDC, there are a number of 8-inch sewers around Mount Clair in West Hartford that still have the UV liner. It's part of our preventive maintenance program right now. This is how we identified the liner on Lynbrook that was failing through regular inspection, but we are inspecting those. Those seem to be installed when their installation equipment was properly working. The larger diameter, which is on Lynbrook, was done at the period where their installation equipment was failing. So we are continuously monitoring that section of pipe on Mount Clair.
And Chris, while you're up there, is the type of pipe, the material used to actually make the pipe different in the 8-inch and the larger 30-inch? Is one a concrete pipe and one a cast iron pipe? Or are they all the same or PVC? Are they different materials?
The original hose pipe on Lynbrook is a 27-inch tile, and then on Mount Clair it's 8-inch tile.
Okay.
The same material?
Yeah, same material, just different characteristics, but also the Mount Clair pipe is at a significantly lesser of a depth than what was in Lynbrook.
Right, I think Lynbrook was around 27 feet or something.
Yeah, approximately, 20, 23, 24, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks.
Further questions? David?
David Drake, are we
Commissioner Drake?
going to keep going with UV or just stop that? That's the end of it? Okay.
Okay. No further questions? Okay. Item 9, report regarding Independent Consumer Advocates Annual Meeting to be held October the 12th, 2020, at 5:30 PM at the MDC Training Center at 120.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, aren't we going to have a report from Mr. Belafonte?
Oh, I'm sorry. Steve. Sorry, if I might, Mr. Chairman, that's my fault.
Okay.
Thank you. Item 8A on your agenda is a report from Attorney Belafonte on the infrastructure funding. You received this morning a detailed report that sets forth 9 pages of legislation, either proposed or enacted, on this issue. You may or may not have had time to read it. I certainly understand if you didn't. But Steve will give a 30,000-foot overview, and if you have any specific questions on that report, please, you can bring that up tonight, or we're certainly available after tonight if you have any questions once you've had a more time to look at it. Steve, if you would.
Sure. Thank you very much, Steve Belafonte. Thanks again. Hopefully you have had a chance to look at the memo. It's about 9 pages, and this is the memo that we keep as a running update. As you imagine, it changes on a daily, if not weekly basis for everything that's happening in Washington. The memo is broken down into a couple sections. I'll just go through them very quickly and be happy to take any questions. The status of our direct federal funding from the MDC, the recently passed Inflation Reduction Act in August, and about 14 or 15 separate, or 16 discrete grant opportunities that were passed in the BIL, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, the IIJA, it's also known as, the water and wastewater infrastructure grants that we have, and there was a comment about that before, the LIWAP, and hopefully future funding for that, and again some FEMA funding that is going to pass through the state of Connecticut, which we may be eligible for based on the fact that some of our facilities in the South Meadows are insured under the NFIP, the National Flood Program. So we'll start out with our earmarks, for lack of a better word, $2.5 million in an earmark directed for the MDC. We were successful in obtaining that earmark. We do have those funds. We're working through. This is the first time earmarks have been back in Congress for several years. We were able to secure a $2.5 million, which will be a grant. Region 1 of EPA is still promulgating their final regulations. We were in active discussion with them about how we can apply those funds, and so we'll provide that update once that's available. In the queue for 2023, we have another $2.5 million request, which is really one of the larger amounts that the congressionally directed spending were able to obtain. 2.5 was the highest amount that the committees were asking for, so we do have another full amount requested for the Northeast Transmission Water Main Project, which is a project that is on our intended use plan filed with the state of Connecticut. My discussions with Senator Murphy's office today say that they are very hopeful that that will stay in. The committee has kept that request in their bill, and that bill it will be as part of the appropriations bill, hopefully taken up in December. As you know, there's an election in November, so there's a continuing resolution to fund the government that was just recently passed that's going to expire in December. So the question will be then what will be on that bill and whether there'll be something more long-term. There'll be a lot of back and forth depending on what the election results are for that. Any questions on that so far? The larger Appropriations Act, one of the things too that I tried to note in the memo is that there's a difference, and I'm sure we all know this, between appropriations and authorizations. So when we hear that a bill has passed $1.2 trillion of funds have been authorized, that doesn't mean there's money available or have been appropriated to pay for that. So these bills have a variety of different programs that have yet to be fully funded. So we're watching each of these discrete programs for the funding. Funding comes online, then the agency will be able to promulgate rules and have a notice of funding opportunity. So those are the ones that we've broken out in the memo, and we'll keep an eye on all of those, and as they become available, we'll see and be able to know what type of eligibility and competitive eligibility we may have. The Low-Income Water Household Assistance Program is a new program. I just checked with Kelly Shane before the meeting started. We've had 404 accounts and $262,000 worth of funds that have been applied, to our bills. That's a significant amount of money that our customers were able to leverage from that program through CRT. So that's a program I think is still going to be ongoing. I've taken a note of the consumer advocate's question, and whether it will be funded in perpetuity, we don't know. So again, that's on the memo as well. The FEMA funding, again, we do have facilities that are in the floodplain. There are programs that the City of Hartford and East Hartford are participating in to move along on the flood control system and the levees, but independent of that, there may be some opportunities for us to obtain funding to better protect our buildings, and so we'll be looking at that as well. As you know from the insurance presentations, flood insurance, these buildings are insured under the NFIP, so they would be eligible. So, sorry to run through it so quickly. I know there may be some questions, and certainly happy to answer them here or via email if you have any.
Are there questions? Let me just, on the approval, will this $2.5 million be put in the allocation on the October budget? Is that what happens?
No, so the $2.5 million that we've received in terms of already congressionally directed spending, that $2.5 million has been authorized and appropriated and is essentially in an account with EPA.
That's the initial 2.5.
That's correct.
I'm asking on the second 2.5, where does that get folded in?
Well,
The
if it's
2023 budget?
If it's passed in the appropriations bill by either the end of the year, this year, or next year, that earmark is in the language of the Senate bill right now, and the committee has essentially approved that. So once that bill is passed, those funds will flow through most likely the same process as the first $2.5 million that went through the first earmark process.
Scott?
Yeah, just to add, Scott Jellison, just to add that $2.5 million grant. In the CIP budget, we have a project at the Hartford Treatment Plant. We have a project at the Hartford Treatment Plant that would be part of that $2.5 million grant. So it's in the CIP request, and really for handling our solids that come in the receiving facility that accepts that sludge that comes in from the receiving plant.
And again, independent of all of this too, the state revolving funds have been the beneficiary of significantly more significant contributions from the federal government as part of the pandemic and other kinds of infrastructure bills. So those funds, in the normal course of our applying for projects, will be available, and that pool will be larger as well.
Commissioner Manda.
Mr. Chairman, please ask people who speak, identify themselves.
Yes,
Thank you.
Commissioner Patel, go ahead.
He wants people to identify themselves.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
This is
Mandyke.
Commissioner Mandyke. Mr. Bonafonte, can you just tell us a little bit, the $1 million funding for the Hartford and East Hartford levies?
That's this.
Was that secured? I just want to, sorry, I'm trying to read through it at the same time I'm trying to ask the question.
Yeah.
And does that go to the MDC or does that go to someone else?
No, that was for information only. That was not ours. That was Congressman Larson's request on behalf of either Hartford or East Hartford. That was not the MDC's. I put that in there for information only.
And did it pass though in 2022, in the 2022 budget?
It did in 22, yes.
Okay, so that's,
And he has not put in anything for 23 that we've seen on this topic, Congressman Larson.
okay, and then also, I don't know if this is a question, this Commissioner Mandyke again, good, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, when we're looking at, since earmarks are back, and last year was the first year that earmarks actually went through, how are we determining what we will ask for in the earmarks? So in other words, the 2.5 last year in fiscal 2022, and then this year for the Northeast Transmission Water Main, is there a list of projects that
That
we
will be
get
included.
from our staff that says, okay, here, and then we're prioritizing them based on what's the most urgent, or what fits into the federal bills? How is that process working?
Scott Jellison, so you will receive a CIP budget for both
Capital improvements.
water, sewer, and a combined, and when we say combined, that means it's a project that serves both water and sewer, so it could be an IT project, for example. So those projects are all identified in the budget. That $2.5 million that we already received that grant, that's been identified for a specific project, the receiving, Cake-Fit receiving facilities. It's really an odor control receiving upgrade to the facility. It's a large project, $20 million or so, and we're gonna, that money will help us design and complete the design and move forward with construction next year. But the water main project, the north east transmission main, as everyone probably remembers, and I used to remember the date, but I think it was 2014, we had a water main explode in the Farmington River. And where water mains cross rivers are, you know, it's an extremely vulnerable position for the MDC to be in. So we've been looking for an ability to cross rivers, and we have 3 water mains that cross the Connecticut River. So we're very vulnerable to that. And this project, although it's not in the budget on the CIP request, we're hopeful that if we get this money, we would make that change. But we've been chasing this money. Steve's been doing a great job trying to chase this money for a while now. So if we get the money, we will come back to the board and request that that be added to the CIP.
Thank you. And just one last question, if I could, Mr. Jellison, Commissioner Randike again. When we're looking at, as Mr. Belafonte noted on here, the $1 million for the Hartford and East Hartford levies, are we having staff that are working with, I believe that actually went to the city of Hartford, that $1 million, if I'm not mistaken. Do we have staff that are working with them to make sure, since we do have 3 breaches into, or 3 cut-throughs for our water mains through the levee on the Hartford side, I believe, well, Hartford and East Hartford side, are we working with them to know exactly what they're looking for and making sure that our infrastructure is, you know, if it's being impacted, or if there's upgrades that we need to do, or if we have concerns on that as well? I mean, do we have staff that are coordinating with them? That's what I'm asking.
We were required, like all utilities, to actually perform a study by the Army Corps to identify penetrations in the dike systems. We did that 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
And so we are constantly working with the city of Hartford and East Hartford on these issues. So yes, we are coordinating with them. Specific to that $1 million, I'm not quite sure what that is for as it relates to the town. It's not for the MDC, but we have done a number of projects to comply with that study that we were required to. And in the case of the water mains, they actually go over the dike through a cradle system, not through. But we do have pipes that penetrate the dike system that, you know, we have to concern ourselves with. So yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Scott.
Further questions? Commissioner Adel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve, you note in the report about PFASs, and that there's no action taking place at this time, but do you see any in the foreseeable future for us to get into that area? Because we know we have some great concerns there.
There's certainly been a lot of discussion about that in Washington and at the state level. That's a program that we would anticipate would be higher on the line for an appropriation. So we're watching that actively.
That's one of the major issues that EPA has taken action on, in the last 3 or 4 months. They took action relative to the issue of, it was 70 parts per billion, and I think they reduced it to 10, Scott? 10, as a, was it 10, Scott?
Yeah, it's under 10.
Under
It's
10. 10 or under.
A trillion, yep.
Trillion, parts per trillion. So they are now starting to move in the right direction, and there's been several communications back and forth, and you'll see them in the white paper relative to what they're doing and what's happening. It's all of a sudden become priority for EPA, which hasn't been what they've done in the past.
Yeah, Scott Jellison. So EPA, we were always concerned regarding the Hartford landfill. As we know, landfills are by deep zone emission and EPA's landfills are the #1 source of PFAS leaching into the rivers of the United States, waterways of the United States. And it's also, contaminating local well water, whether it's a residential or it's a water company that has, uses wells for their supply. So the one significant thing, and I've quoted this in the paper, is that one major change that's occurred like in the last month, 2 months, is EPA has now identified PFAS compounds as a hazardous substance, which allows EPA to now use the Superfund site language legislation to actually force landowners to clean up their site, which is a major change, because one of the biggest concerns the industry had, meaning wastewater regional bodies like MDC, was that the regulations were going to point to us, and we were going to have to catch this stuff like we're doing now, and we're going to have to treat it. And so what the letters from EPA have said is they are going to start to hold landowners, private and public, responsible for cleaning up, and I know Commissioner cleaning up PFAS at the site, point source reduction, right at the location. So theoretically, if that is where the EPA is going, theoretically, the MDC, others like us, would never receive PFAS in our wastewater stream, right? They'll go after the industrial users, dischargers, and they'll go after the landfills. So that's kind of a new thing that's occurred recently in the last couple of months, and we'll see where it goes. But they are going to start focusing Superfund money to force
Qualify for it, yeah. Further questions? Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, 9, report regarding Independent Consumer Advocate Annual Meeting to be held October the 12th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. at the Hartford Training Center, MDC's Hartford Training Center at 125 Maxim Road in Hartford. That's okay, Joe? Good? Okay, we're on board. Again, that's open to the public, it's open to commissioners, it's open to anybody that wants to go to the meeting, and you can listen to Joe. Okay. 10, referral of the 2023 budget to the Board of Finance. Recommended action is to refer to the Board of Finance. Is there a motion to refer?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. It's referred to the Committee on Finance, Board of Finance. 11, Personnel and Pension and Insurance Committee consideration and potential action regarding we can't take these together, we take them individually?
They could be consolidated.
Okay. Is there any objection to consolidating A and B together? That would be pension discount rate and mortality tables, and the OPEB discount rate, administrative expense, and mortality tables. Is there any objection to them being? Without objection, we'll join the two. Who's going to do this?
I move it.
Yeah, Bob?
Sure, I'm happy to speak to it, but this has been presented by Milliman and me at least 2 or 3 times. Right. What we're asking for approval is that we adopt an 1/8% per year reduction for 2023 in the discount rate. Usually when you lower the discount rate, your liabilities climb, and so your contribution is greater. But there are other assumptions, like the adoption of the most current mortality table, that is actually making the contribution go down. For on the pension side, it's roughly $500,000, and on the OPEB side, it's over $2 million worth of savings. So we have the ability to adopt a lower discount rate and still save money in the upcoming fiscal year.
Is this an eighth of a point?
An eighth
It's an eighth of a point that.
Right, so it's just 6.625, from 6 3/4 down to 6 5/8.
Commissioner Taylor, Chairman of BP&I.
Mr. Chairman, this matter was approved unanimously at PP&I.
The second part of that is the administrative costs that are going to be paid, just quickly on. We have not been paying the administrative expenses directly, and this is going to add that to.
Right, but not to be confused, we've been paying them, but directly from the fund. So
right.
this allows it to become part of the OPEB valuation that Milliman does every year. So it's just a change of the language to make it exactly as the pension is done. Pensions contributions are calculated with administrative expenses, and then this vote tonight would allow OPEB to be the same. But we have been paying it all
It's
along.
basically a format change.
Right.
What you're doing is you're just accounting for it differently.
That's right.
We've been paying for it. Are there any further questions? Commissioner Gatto?
Yeah, Commissioner Gardo here. So the mortality rate, is this because people are dying earlier? Or what's the reason? Because there's inflation. So how do these balance out, or do we have to care about inflation?
Well, Becky Seelman is the expert in answering that, but that is a very succinct answer. Why are we paying less by adopting a new mortality table? And that is because we're paying for less time, or people are dying sooner.
Okay, because I'd heard that mortality is going down for many reasons. Okay, but for this. I guess the inflation has nothing to do with it at this point, going forward with pensions and what have you.
That's an actuary discussion, but just to put everybody on a level playing field here, the valuation is done on our pension every year. The valuation is done on our health insurance promises, OPEB, every other year. And it's only completed for the existing employees. So we determine how much the existing employees are going to cost us in the future, bring it back to time zero, and compare it to the assets we have in the bank. And then that shortfall, they tell us how much we have to contribute each year. And so they have assumptions. You asked about inflation. They have assumptions for payroll growth. On the pension side, they have assumptions for increases in cost of medicine and prescriptions on the OPEB side. And I'm sure there's some inflation comes into their calculations at some point, but both of those numbers are part of inflation, right? And so that's what the actuaries presented to us for the adoption of the lower discount rate and the new mortality table for both pension and OPEB. These are the numbers we received.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Commissioner Curry and then Commissioner
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Torres.
First, I'd like to thank Bob for his input and his well-versed knowledge of the subject and the fact that it's been pretty painless this year to take that little step, what I've always said were baby steps in lowering the discount rate. Our actuary came forward and was in complete agreement for the first time that I can recall, and that's much appreciated. The other reason, I just wanted to comment for the mortality rate, as well as the discount rate, is our rating agencies really like municipalities and MDC to stay current. There are municipalities out there that are using mortality rates that are 10, 15 years old because they can't come forward and update because of the cost to the taxpayer. We've been very proactive, thanks to everyone at this table, to maintain current mortality rates and keep taking those baby steps down to that discount level of hopefully 6% in the next few years. So I thank you for that, Bob.
Sure, thank you.
Commissioner Torres?
Commissioner Torres here. I guess just along the same lines, I'm just a little bit concerned about those mortality rates. So I know that I've read that mortality rates have gone downward, primarily and especially because of the COVID over the last couple of years, which has really brought down the longevity by maybe 2 years or so. I don't remember, and I'm wondering if those actuarial projections, are factoring in this data, and whether or not that will continue to be the same trend as we, hopefully,
Commissioner, can you adjust your microphone, please?
Yes,
hopefully
Commissioner
as we
Patel,
move
let's-
forward, and try to control the situation with the pandemics.
Closer to the microphone.
I know the mortality tables are, Bob Barron, are issued annually by the College of Actuaries, and so I think Milliman is adopting them each year or every other year. I don't know what the trend will be or what it'll be in the future, but I'm confident that Milliman will recommend for us to keep up with the most current mortality.
Okay, that would be my concern, making sure that we follow the trends and that we adjust our own strategies as we go forward.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we do that at her direction, and she's the expert doing the analysis, and obviously the committee makes a final decision on whatever way we're going to go. This is what, an eighth of a
point, right.
Right,
0.125.
and we started this out, there was suggestion that it be much higher, and we have seen a different response in the fact that we were more conservative than most people were, weren't we, Bob?
My personal opinion is, being in front of the rating agencies every year for the last 15 years now, I think they're less concerned with a target and more concerned with the fact that you have a plan to reach a reasonable number, and that you have a demonstrated history of following that plan. And so whether you are taking a half point or 3/4 of a point and reaching 6 or 6.5, whatever your target was, I don't think is any more impressive than someone like us that's taking an eighth a year and will reach something eventually that is our target. This is a very, very long-term liability. You don't have to do it all at once. And we've demonstrated that we continue to lower the discount rate. Personally, I'd like to get to 6.5% and take a look again. Personally, I'm not so convinced that it has to go as low as 6%, but I know Becky says that nationwide, the actuaries are saying 6% is the most appropriate discount rate. Remember what the discount rate is doing. It's saying, hey, it's what you're going to earn on your assets in the market. Well, for the last 5 years, we've earned way more than, what are we at, 6 3/4%, way more than that. But of course, they think in longer terms than I usually deal with. They think in 30-year terms. So I'm inclined to trust their direction. I'm not so sold on their final destination, though. So we'll look again. Well, we're at 5/8, so we'll maybe drop another eighth next year, and at the end of that year, we'll take a look again.
Further questions? Okay, again, we've combined A and B, and we'll take both of them up with a single vote.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to combine? Is there any objection? I asked, there's no objection to combine. So the issue will be, all those in favor of A and B combined signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Item 12, the Committee on Organization, consideration and potential action regarding committee appointments. Recommended action, receive the report and adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Discussion?
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, I'd like to know when we're going to have somebody on internal audit committee. It was, we had somebody proposed, and then it was removed, and I'd like to know when we're going to have somebody on the internal audit committee.
Again, there was action. Anybody want to answer that? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Avery Buell, Chairman of Committee on Organization. The committee met on September 19th, and it was, I recommended that the membership on the audit committee stay as it was at the time, at the 19th of September. Given the events and the issues that were before the audit committee, rather than having a new person step in at that time. And it was just simply my recommendation to the committee. The committee voted in favor of it, and so the audit committee stayed at that number, and there was no addition.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, I do have a question. I have deep concerns because he based that on how that individual was voting. He basically said that he was worried that a commissioner is going to be basically prejudging something. You know, why would anybody who's appointing somebody to organization analyze how they voted in the past? Totally inappropriate. And I want somebody put on internal audit committee. We have a vacancy, and we need one. And he, as chairman, doesn't have the authority on his own to not put somebody on organization.
I believe he controls the agenda.
Well, I'm requesting that we put somebody on internal audit. We have one spot missing, and it's totally inappropriate for us not to put somebody on there.
We can have we'll have a committee of organization next meeting, and whenever you're going to call it, you can call it. And we'll raise
I haven't
that
decided,
question.
I have no plans to call one. I can make a plan to call one, but I have no plans right now to call one. I would also like to address the innuendo that I had an agenda of some sort, that I denied that it was my decision that I expected or demanded that the committee behave in such a way that they did. Thus far, what you're relying on are appearances, just basically making vacuous accusations backed by nothing but cold air. So let me paraphrase a famous quote. Is or is not. There is no appear.
Well, then why would you pull somebody off? You analyzed, look at the minutes for organization. The chairman analyzed how an individual was going to be voting.
That's not true.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I believe that comments should be addressed to the chairperson, not directed to...
Yeah, let's go through the chair on this.
All the commissioners should be very concerned about this. There's no reason why the internal audit committee shouldn't be fully with all the seats filled. There's no reason.
Further questions, further discussion? Commissioner?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Gardo. I was on the meeting of organization, and I believe that every subcommittee in this commission should have full representation, such that we meet quorum, and we don't have issues, the government meeting last week was sitting idle without enough folks until folks walked in or got on the telephone. We need to be run efficiently here, all right? And, I was at that organizational meeting, and I was on the telephone for that, and I was shocked, all right? And what the chairman of that commission just said was to me, was a bunch of nonsense. I'm sorry, Avery. I just didn't,
Let's stop questioning people's motives.
Well, I did not question the motives. I just questioned the words that were just used at this meeting, okay? So I'm glad that we're filling the other spots, and I believe that the Internal Audit Committee should be filled to meet, so that we can meet quorums. Thank you.
Commissioner Hoffman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Hoffman, I just wanted to address a question to our council, asking that if a motion could be made at this moment to accede to the wishes of Commissioner Payne.
Anyone can make a motion to amend the resolution to add or subtract from what's proposed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
What if multiple people wants to be on the Internal Audit Committee? Is it just one?
No, there's a fixed number of commissioners that have been appointed to the audit committee. And I believe the maximum is what, 9?
People wants to be.
9. And I believe there is presently 7?
There's presently 8.
8. There's
one vacancy.
one vacancy.
So what if multiple people want to be on that one vacancy?
Well, that's an issue that should be brought up before the organization committee, I guess, but if it's gonna be filled. So, I mean, that's a question.
No, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Patel.
Yes, sir, Commissioner. Go ahead.
Problem is people not attending the meeting. By adding one doesn't solve the problem. People who are there, they should attend, and then they should vote. So what's the point of adding one or adding less? Thank you.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Through you, I'd like to make a motion to add to organization John Avedian to be appointed to the Internal Audit Committee, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Motions, Commissioner Curry?
Through the chair to council, does this require a simple amendment, or is this an addendum to the agenda?
Simple amendment to the resolution.
At the agenda, the motion, the issue is before us, and is on a, on a planned meeting, amendments can be brought up. On a special meeting, they have to be an agenda item and have to be put on the agenda or alter the agenda. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No. Roll call vote, please.
It's been moved for a roll call. Is there an objection to a roll call?
Will you please specify the motion?
The motion was to add a commissioner, Commissioner Avedian, to the audit committee. It was made by Commissioner Payne. It was seconded. It's before us. We voted on it. If there's a request for a roll call vote and there's no objection, we will proceed to a roll call vote. Let me, go ahead.
Point of order. Are we voting to add an additional person, or are we adding specifically
We're
to add?
adding, what
Commissioner
we're
Avedisian?
doing is we're adding an additional person because there is only 8. The committee maximum would be 9, and the bottom line issue is this is a motion has been made to add someone to that committee.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Curry?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, one
Commissioner
second.
Patel.
Commissioner Patel, 1 second. Commissioner Curry's got it.
I want to be
I'll
sure I
recognize you next.
understood. I had a question, but I want to be sure I understood your response to the previous question. The motion is not to add a person, the motion is to add
A specific person, yes.
All right, and I would just like to state for the record, while I'm going to vote no on this, by no means does my vote in any way reflect on my thoughts of the individual being moved forward, but the process being used.
Commissioner
Torres.
Torres?
Yes, I share the same concern. To me, it seems like we're not following our normal procedures in terms of naming the person to a committee. I don't know that this is appropriate. Again, whose responsibility is it to make that appointment to the committee? And are we now?
Commissioner Torres, can you speak through your microphone?
I guess we're having a problem with communication with people that aren't here, so speak closer to the microphone so.
I'm concerned about process here, and I'm not comfortable with making that decision about having this board at this time do this if we're not following our normal processes for naming individuals to committees. So again, I concur with Commissioner Curry. And again, I'm going to vote no, but it's no reflection of the person. I'm just concerned about process.
Commissioner Salimi.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Patel. I said that I recognize him. Commissioner Patel?
Yes, please. My point is, by creating this motion and all other things, we are basically bifurcating from our standard procedure. We don't appoint anybody in a similar manner. Chairman appoints, and chairman can appoint. Simply, board can express their desire to add one, and then chairman can make a decision later. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner Salimi, I had you on.
I just would like to echo the comments of Commissioner Curry and Commissioner Torres and say that, we have a process for nominating different individuals to the various different committees of the MDC. And it's the committee and organization that does that. And although I guess council has suggested that we could act, the body as a whole, to do the same job, I mean, I think that suggests that we could act in the same way with any committee. So,
Well, if I may.
I mean, it's not limited to the committee and organization, so I could come here with the same sort of request about any committee and we force the district board to take up the job of a committee that already has responsibility for doing that. So, and I'll also add my comments the same as Commissioner Curry's. Has nothing to do with the person whose name is suggested. It's just that the process seems to kind of go against what we've already established and usurp the responsibilities of the committee, of the subcommittee on organization. So, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, our legal counsel.
Yes, thank you.
Chris.
Thank you, Chris Stone, District Counsel. And I certainly understand your point, the point of Commissioner Curry, from Commissioner Torres and Commissioner Salemi. B1G of our bylaws sets out the role of the committee and organizations. They're to make nominations. The nominations ultimately are just that, and until this board acts, whomever is nominated is not appointed. So they don't appoint, they nominate, they recommend, in other words. So there's been a nomination, it's set forth in this resolution. it is proper, as I indicated before, to amend that resolution to add, or not, or to subtract, to vote against any of the appointments. But B1G sets out the process, so we're following the process.
We're following the process that there, at any time, when something's on an agenda for a scheduled meeting, you have the right to make an amendment at any time from the floor. On special meetings, it has to be an agenda item, and it would have to change the basic construct if it's not on the agenda. Who has not spoken? Have you spoken yet, Rick? Rick, go ahead.
Commissioner Bush, I just feel like, in my opinion, there's two separate issues that are going on. Is one, are we going to add a person, and then who that person is? So I think that we should have a vote, maybe, that we are going to, yes, add somebody.
The motion is to add a person, a specific person.
Right, I'm
onto
suggesting,
the-
sorry, Mr.
okay,
Chairman,
I thought you didn't
apologize.
understand.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm saying that we decide to add any person. We don't specify who that person is. We agree as a group that we're going to add somebody to the committee, and then later, we then decide who that person
That
is.
is not the resolution before you. The resolution is to appoint a specific person, am I not right?
That's correct.
Right, to fill a vacancy. So the issue is not, the question is the person. Okay, Commissioner Van Dyke.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I just want to make sure I point out that internal audit has one vacancy right now. We have a total of 9. We're not adding to 10. We have a total of 9, and that this is to fill a vacancy. I understand, there's conflicts about, should we add someone at this time? We're in the middle of an issue right now. I understand that. And I hear my fellow commissioners as far as a process is concerned. But when things come out of other committees, at all different times, we may accept or reject at this board or amend. So I think we are following the process, as our counsel pointed out, and this board is considering amending what a committee has gone ahead and suggested to this board. So I think in no way are we usurping power of the organization committee. I don't think it says anything about our chair or not. We're all, I just want to make sure that I point out that I don't think this is usurping power. This is not going against process. This is making an amendment to a committee recommendation to the entire board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further comment? Further comment? And have anybody that hasn't spoken? Dominic, you had your hand up.
Commissioner Mandyke answered. This is Commissioner Payne. She did an excellent job. We have one vacancy. I don't understand what the problem is. We just want to put somebody on there. John was recommended originally, and then it was pulled off for some reason. And if this fails, my next motion will be nominating Commissioner Lester for internal audit. So, just so you know. Thank you.
Further questions? Okay, John, you want to read the roll?
I have a problem with the process.
Commissioner Patel, I'm
Commissioner
sorry.
Patel.
He's all set.
You done? Okay. All right, this is John Myrtle, District Clerk. The vote before you is Commissioner Payne's motion to amend the resolution to add Commissioner Avedisian to the Internal Audit Committee. DeBella.
No.
Adel.
No.
Avedisian. Buell.
No.
Bush.
No.
Curry.
No.
Drake.
Yes.
Gardeau.
Yes.
Gentile. Healy.
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes.
Holloway.
No.
Yono. Commissioner Yono, you still on the phone? Lester.
No.
Lewis.
No.
Magnan.
Yes.
Mandyke.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
Patel.
No.
Salemi,
No.
Taylor? No. Torres?
No.
Vecino?
No.
The noes have it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
If I could have the floor. I'd like to make a new motion that that I nominate Commissioner Lester for the vacancy of Internal Audit Committee, since he showed some interest, and that's my motion. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I didn't really show interest. I was just curious about an answer. I'd like to withdraw my name from nomination.
You're entitled to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would ask, who would like to serve on this? We would like to have a full board. Is there a commissioner that would like to step up?
I think the board has made it very clear what their opinion is at this point in time. Can we move on?
Get back to the agenda.
Next item,
Mr. Chairman, can
I know, yeah, on the main motion. Yes, Rick.
I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here and make a motion that we agree to add somebody to the Internal Audit Committee to be determined through the process that would satisfy the commissioners.
Well, I think the commissioners have spoken, and
Well, I'm making a motion to add somebody to the Internal Audit
that's
Committee yet to be
redundant.
determined.
The issue was just addressed by the body.
I'll second that motion.
Disagree. Thank you.
I don't accept the motion.
How can you not accept the
You're making a
motion?
motion to do what?
To add an individual to be determined to the Internal Audit Committee.
Excuse me. You're saying you want a motion to approve, the board is going to approve someone that is approved by what, the
Well,
committee?
that the board will submit, people will be nominated for the position according to the procedure and protocol that the individuals who currently are objecting will approve.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, the District Council, approving in advance of someone who might be nominated is out of order. But it may be, and I'm not going to try to guess at where you might be going with this, but maybe it's just simply that and maybe it's a representation from Chairman Buell that the organization committee have a meeting in short order to make a determination whether to or if you want to nominate someone to the audit committee.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This subject came up during the Committee on Organization meeting, and the question was asked, well, do you ever intend to add a ninth person? I said, of course. I said, the only reason we didn't this time, the committee agreed not to, was because we had 8 people who were involved in an issue. And I said, fine with me to have 9 people, but after the issue before the audit committee is resolved. And everyone thought, okay, fine. And that was the end of that conversation. It's exactly what is being discussed here. We have every intention of adding a ninth.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, then I would assume there'd have to be a committee meeting to do that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
that's what was asked initially.
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Commissioner Payne, basically, the chairman wants to wait until after the committee has made its decision on things. We barely started. We haven't hired an attorney yet to review anything. So for you guys to think that we're so far into it that we can't put somebody else on there is totally false. We're supposed to have somebody. We should have somebody. There's no reason why we can't put somebody on there. John was recommended prior to all this, and for some sort of reason, there's a lot of commissioners that doesn't want John on there. Okay? That's what it appears. And if that's not the case, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that an organization chairman have a meeting right away, find somebody for the internal audit committee, and bring it back to a special meeting, and so that the internal audit committee has full membership.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm perfectly happy to conduct or hold another committee, an organization meeting at any time. And if the Committee on Organization decides tomorrow to add a ninth person, fine. That just was not the decision during the meeting on the 19th of September, that's all.
I guess, so that that you're not objecting to having a meeting. Okay, I thought that.
Just-
Anyway,
Well,
okay,
Mr. Chairman?
so the commissioner, I said that, I'm sorry, Commissioner, go ahead.
I just,
Torres.
I have
Commissioner Torres.
Commissioner Torres, I have a problem when we lower our dialogue and our conversation and our debate to the personal level. And I take deep offense to Commissioner Payne's assertion that there are people that are against somehow those that have voted not to proceed with this because we don't want Commissioner Avedisian to be nominated. Now, and I specifically stated before, this is an issue of process as far as I'm concerned. It has nothing to do with whether I like him or don't like him.
I don't think he was questioning everybody's motive. I think the basic issue he's trying to
Well, it
resolve.
seems, and it comes across that way, and
Okay.
and I think we need to
And
measure-
I stated to the body that they should not question people's motives relative to,
And I think we should keep that
what's
in mind,
going
that, we need to show respect for each other here and not make those kinds of comments. Thank you.
fine. You're comfortable with a committee meeting being held?
That would
Okay.
be very nice. Thank you, Mr.
Fine.
Chairman.
Okay. Main motion, I almost forgot what the main motion is here. The main motion is the combined, I'm sorry, just the appointments that stand. John, could you read the appointments for the board members so they know who's coming on,
Yes.
and which committees they'll be filling?
Yep, 1 second. And it's Commissioner Gentile to the Committee on Technology, BPW, and I believe Strategic Planning. I
No,
apologize, I'm
technology.
pulling it up.
No, she's on technology.
Technology.
Yep, BPW, Strategic Planning and Technology, and Commissioners Patel and Holloway to General Policy and Planning. Thank you.
And also Board of Finance.
Correct. The citizen members, Linda Russo of East Hartford to the Board of Finance, and Nick LeBron of Hartford to the Board of Finance.
Okay. No further discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item
13.
13. Item 13, Committee on MDC Government Consideration and Potential Action regarding A, Code of Ethics Acknowledgement and Potential Conflict of Interest Disclosure Form. I believe the committee was no action on that. Commissioner Hoffman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Hoffman, acting as chairman of the Government Committee. It was the case that Attorney Bonifante attended our meeting and made a presentation regarding the ethics question. Disclosure form. That form is being further developed. We have a draft at this time, and it will be edited and presented once again to the Government Committee at a future date. We did act in concert with the revision of bylaw regarding
No, you're getting into B now. B was
yes.
also no
B3D.
action. There's no action on B for the same basic reason. We were taking it up at another meeting, a future meeting.
Yes, correct.
So that the only one that we would deal with would be item C, which is the revision.
Correct.
Okay, if there's no objection to the A and B.
Correct.
If there's
When I said B, I was referring to item C.
C, right.
Which is B, 3D. So you're correct.
So if there's no objection to A and B, it was a placeholder
Correct.
that we thought we were going to be able to, at least in the committee, come up with a recommendation. There wasn't. There was technical issues in what we were doing, and as a result, the committee voted to hold those to the next committee meeting. Chairman Hoffman did. Item C, is there objection to A and B being no action required? Is there any objection? Okay. Item C is revision of bylaw B3D, general, and that's the Farmington River, what is it, John, the Farmington River?
Farmington River Watershed Advisory Committee is identified as a continuing standing committee in bylaw B3D. In January of this year, at organization of the district board, several longstanding inactive committees were disbanded and dissolved. This Farmington River Watershed Advisory Committee was one of those, so this is housekeeping to clean up the bylaw to reflect the action from the board in January.
Okay. Discussion. So for all those in favor?
We need somebody to move the resolution.
I'm sorry, is there a motion to move adoption? It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to a vote. Clerk?
Yes.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Item 14, consideration and potential action regarding budget for expenses associated with the chairman's attendance to the Northeast Residential and Biosolids Conference in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, to be held November 1st through the 2nd, 2020. Now, this is another issue that we've not put in the budget because we had not been doing this through COVID. This is a new association that we have joined. When did we join, Scott?
2 months ago.
Well, the NUIA, we've been a member for ever. NEBRA is I've mentioned NEBRA numerous times.
Well,
It's a small organization that we've joined as well, specific to sludge and biosolids.
Right.
So it's a partnership, but we've been a member of NUIA for, Tom, since, probably the last 30 years. Probably the last 30 years, we've been a member at least of NUIA. NEBRA is a joint presentation at this specific event in New Hampshire.
So, and again, I think that there may be other commissioners that may want to join this, and if that's the case, we're basically asking, is there anybody else that has an interest in attending this in November? No.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Commissioner Payne here. I'm not necessarily for this because we didn't follow the process. Shouldn't have this gone to Technology Committee? Shouldn't we had a report from Technology Committee? Question.
No.
No? Okay. I would think you would.
It was not in the budget, and it should be in the budget. There should be the ability for commissioners and the chairman to go to those meetings.
This is also the topic that,
You can vote against it. It's your prerogative.
if I could finish, Mr. Chairman?
I'm just giving you asked me a question, and I
Yep.
said you have the right to vote against it.
I know I have the right to vote either for it or against it. I understand that, Mr. Chairman. But this is also the topic that every commission member voted not to spend any money on until it had a conversation. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. John, do you have an amendment? I'm sorry, Commissioner Curry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will there be a line item in the 2023 budget
Yes,
for
there will be.
a reasonable amount of dollars
Yeah.
for?
We basically, Commissioner, have not had a lot of travel or any of these types of participation. And now this is becoming a significant issue in the whole PFAS issue and the whole question of technology relative to what's happening around us with the PFAS issue. And basically, I guess, even a broader issue than that, technologies and things of that nature they're going to deal with.
If I may.
Go ahead.
This is Scott Jelson. So the MDC has always budgeted for staff to attend these types of industry meetings. Staff also has to attend certain meetings to keep their registration up, whether it's on the water side or the sewer side. This is, this is a request. We've never budgeted money for commissioners to go to events. So this needs to be, that's why it's on the agenda. So we're asking to specifically put money in the district board account for this purpose. And for 2023, we'll need some directive from, probably starting at the Finance Committee meeting, as to how much the board chooses to put in this agenda. We haven't put anything in this agenda, in this district board budget at this stage, but if the board so chooses, then we will put money in the budget.
We do have in the past, we in Washington with our legislative, why don't you?
Yeah, let me speak to that. Chris Stone, District Council, there have been occasions in the past where the chairman has accompanied District Council, at the time it was Attorney Halloran and others, to Washington for purposes of meeting with our representative senators and to, in effect, provide some lobbying assistance to the MDC as the face of the MDC in his role as chairman. So, and that's been paid for not by the district board budget, but by the district council's lobbying budget. That has not happened over the past several years, but is in large part because the only one who goes to Washington these days has been Attorney Bonafonte, and even that's been limited or curtailed to some extent because of COVID, and because there's not it's easier to communicate with our representatives in Washington via virtually as opposed to in person, because I think it's only recently that they've returned, or the staff has returned to their offices. So with that, and to echo what the CEO was indicating, there has not been this particular line item or sub-account within the district board budget in the past. There was a request by the chairman to attend this conference. I don't have, it's not part of my budget, which I manage. It's not part of Scott's budget that he manages. It should be, if at all, it should be part of the budget of the district board. And that's the reason why we're not just allocating money, we're actually creating this sub-account, because it's envisioned that for 2023, that same sub-account will be funded to some extent. We're moving a pace in terms of through our budget process, and so it would be helpful to the CEO and the finance director and the administrative officer to get some idea of the extent to which the board, if they want to, the extent to which they want to fund this for 2023. But that being said, this is a limited allocation just to take care of the chairman's desire to attend this conference on November 1st and 2nd. And lastly, I would just point out that I respectfully, I guess I agree but disagree with the Commissioner Payne. This is the events that took place back in November of 2021, in January of 2022, while not a vote, a formal vote, there was an expression of an intent to go to sub-bureaus, whether it be the Bureau of Public Works in January, or when the Science and Technology Committee was formed, to move the duties of the BPW on technologies to the Technology Committee. But there was an intent expressed to bring any expenditure to the board for a budget and for consent to spend the monies and to move forward with certain initiatives. That's exactly why we're here on this, in addition to setting up the budget item, but because of the what many of us consider to be the intent of this board back in January, is to bring these types of things back to you. It hasn't gone through to the Technology Committee, and oftentimes this board acts absent formal action by a subcommittee, and that's really what we're trying to accomplish here today. So that's my response to Commissioner Payne and why we're doing this now, and what we're going to ask you to do as part of the budget for 2023.
Commissioner Drake.
Yeah, David Drake. Is anybody from engineering going with you?
No.
Staff people, no? Wouldn't that make sense? I'm just saying, I have no problem with you going. Seems like someone from the staff should go also.
Yeah, so we had no intention of going. A lot of the information that's going to be presented, if you read the white paper, one of the biggest challenges that is really being focused on, there's a lot of master planning and some other technology issues going on up there, but one of the biggest challenges that New England is having, we've talked about the capacity studies, is really the communities that do not have incinerators. We have an incinerator. There's only 15% in the country that have incineration. So a lot of the issues that are being driven right now and complicated because of PFAS is from the wastewater treatment plants that use digestion to process their sludge. And so the only way to get rid of that digested material is to land apply it on farms as fertilizer or to bury it. And as I've sent emails out on this very topic to everyone, the biggest problem is that it's political hysteria. It's what do we do? We can't, no one wants to take it. No one wants to put it on their farm fields. It's occurring across the country. No one wants to put it in their landfills. So this is really what this is focused on. It's also focused on new technologies, which I address in my my white paper. We've talked a lot about gasification, pyrolysis and gasification. And without getting into 37 pages of detail, the information will be made available to us. I've been in direct contact with NEBRA. Tom's been in direct contact with NEBRA. We don't believe we need to attend. And again, I'm concerned, as we've said in the past, we've got 12 cases. I've got 20 employees that are affected. I don't want to send someone and then they bring back COVID, and then we got problems. So we can attend virtually.
Your choice, I just
Yeah.
curious.
You
Thank you.
figured the chairman can get it, but not the... Okay. Further discussion.
Yes, I
Commissioner
think,
Torres.
Commissioner Torres, I think we're overthinking this matter. We've done this in the past. We didn't put it in the budget because COVID. It's normal for organizations to be represented collectively at these kinds of things. I don't know why we're spending so much time on this. It's very valuable time that we're spending on this. This is valuable. In being at these things is important. The city of San Antonio learned about flood control of the San Antonio River because they came to Hartford because we were there and told them about it. These things are important. You share information, you network, you coalesce, you advocate. Let's stop this conversation now, please, and let's move forward and approve this thing, and let's move on to the next agenda item.
Further discussion. Yes, Commissioner Gentile.
Commissioner Gentile, I understand the need to move this forward, given the date. I do want to bring us back to the comment that Judy Allen made at the outset, that I think it's also critical whenever anyone goes and represents the board to come back and report out on what they learned. So we get the benefit that San Antonio got
I agree.
collectively.
That's a good point, Joe. Commissioner, I saw someone had their hand up. Who had their? Commissioner Hoffman, did you have something to say?
Just briefly, speaking in favor of allowing this to proceed, putting it into the budget in a specific place. It can always be taken out, used elsewhere if it weren't spent. The problem, if there is a problem, would only be insofar as these are individual cases, and that decision, again, falls on the chairman. And that's the only way to take care of that, it seems to me. So if permission is requested, it's granted, and it's paid for through our budget. That's all.
Further discussions? If not, all those, I'm sorry, Commissioner Curry.
Just a generalized question. Department of Motor Vehicles throughout the country have annual conventions through ANVA. Is there any such organization for water companies?
Yes.
And if
There's-
there
we
is,
belong to
if
several.
we're as good as we think we are, and as good as Scott says we are, then why are we not considering hosting one of those conventions?
Commissioner Scott Jellison, so we're a member of CWWA, American Waterworks Association. We're also a member of the National AWWA. Our staff has been the president of that organization, vice president. Who's on the board this year, Chris Levesque?
Ray Burrell, Alex Cosentino, Dave Banker's been on the chair.
So we are actually the president of these organizations, and we have allowed, even during COVID, we used to send 5, 10 people to those kinds of events. We've restricted it to just the board members. As I was once a board member of NACWA, you served 9 years on the NACWA board, so I would attend those meetings. But we are very engaged, Commissioner, on the NUI is on the wastewater side, and Tom is and his staff attend those on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Somebody to move the resolution.
I move adoption. Is there a motion to move adoption?
Second.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Further, let's see, item number 15. Consideration and potential action regarding settlement of pending claims T-Mobile Northeast LLC, possible executive session. There's going to be no executive session. What is the
Yes, if
Chief
I may.
Legal Counsel?
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Chairman, Chris Stone, District Counsel. This is a proposed settlement of a dispute between ourselves and T-Mobile Northeast LLC. They are the tenant of a cell tower that's located on our property down on Brainerd Road. They enter into a lease we entered into a lease with T-Mobile back in November of 2003. As part of that lease, there's a lease acceleration or lease increase as new equipment's placed or additional equipment's placed on the tower. We have indication that there was additional equipment placed on the tower in October of 2008, which was approximately 16 years ago. They were supposed to pay additional rent. We calculated what that additional rent should be, and it came out to approximately $73,000. They've raised a statute of limitations defense with any written contract. The statute of limitations extends for 6 years, so their claim is that they owe us much less than the $73,000. At one point, they disputed owing anything. They then made an offer of $30,000, which we rejected. We went back and forth and arrived at, subject to your approval, a resolution of the dispute, taking into account a potential statute of limitations defense and cost of litigation of a $50,000 settlement with T-Mobile. So it's not 73, but it's 50,000, which is approximately the halfway point between, well, it's more than the halfway point between 0 and 73, but it's about the halfway point between 30,000 and 73,000. We strongly recommend approval.
Chairman?
Dominic?
Yep, through you, I'd like to ask the district council why it took so long to recognize the fact that we didn't have a tenant on there, and what are you doing about it?
Well, we have a tenant on there.
tenant was added.
We didn't get the information about the additional equipment until much later.
So for 16 years, nobody had
No
inspected it?
No one,
No one from
honestly.
MDC looked and inspected it to see if anybody was, no, for 16
That's
years?
correct.
Unbelievable.
Well, and you understand that the equipment can be placed on there, relatively easily.
Yeah, I understand. I have rental property, but you keep an eye on things. You have pictures, and then you go and inspect it, maybe on every 2 years or 1 year. I mean, it's 16 years without knowing that somebody was added to the cell tower that is supposed to be paying us? I got a little problem with that.
Well, again, one of the reasons why we're
Could we go through the chair?
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Mr. Chairman, District Council, one of the reasons why they've agreed to pay what they're paying is a recognition that they've been using that additional equipment for some period of time, even beyond the 6 years, and they're offering the $50,000.
Further discussion? Could I have a motion? It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? If not, I'm sorry, Commissioner Godell.
Thank you. So where does this money then get deposited? And how much did it cost the attorneys to get this money?
Zero money. We did it in-house, and the money goes into the general fund.
General fund, okay. And is that where all the revenues from cell towers goes through you, Mr. Chair?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
David Drake, I'm just curious, as this lease goes forward, I see the person who cheated anybody here would be T-Mobile. They should have told us, right? Are they going to now have to say, they have to tell us if they make a change by putting equipment on? I understand about the idea of monitoring, but we can't send people over to look at a
The
cell
short
tower.
answer to your question, through you, Mr. Chairman, District Council, the short answer to your question is yes, and the lease is set to expire in May of 2023. It has not been renewed. We'll be back to you if there's a proposal to renew it.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 16, opportunity for general public comments.
Good evening again, Alyssa Peterson from Hartford. I just wanted to, I hope all the commissioners understand how important internal audit and policing yourselves and policing this organization is. It's why I came here tonight. I haven't been here in a long time. It's been 5 or 6 years, ever since the legislation at MDC, I think, was the last big battle. People like myself, community activists, political activists, whatever you want to call us, we have to resort to getting articles written, or I publish political parody websites. In fact, I'm going to be launching one very soon. Or we have to read in something like daily ructions, et cetera, about the activities going on here. And every dollar you save is a dollar that could be given to somebody in Hartford who cannot afford the ridiculous water rates that we now have. About 5 or 6 years ago, your chairman here came to a council committee meeting that I attended and talked about how it's a shame that the rates were going up and that something should be done because of the federal poverty level, and residents of Hartford were experiencing difficulty. We've got so many people leaned, homes leaned, landlords' rents going up. It's serious. So every dollar you save, I thank you very much for paying attention. I thank you for the internal audit, for the attention you're paying. But every dollar matters, because it then can be either returned to your budget and your rate someday lowered. I've come to the conclusion personally that a class action is needed in Hartford to do something about, the vote that was taken years ago. Voters, I believe, were not informed. Every year rates have gone up so badly. There has to be better explanations as to what is going on here in the MDC. Thank you very much, and again, thank you for your time.
Further discussion, further comment, okay? Commissioners' comments or questions? Other business. I'm sorry, Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to remark on one of our agenda items tonight that I didn't remark on, and I thought this was a better place to do it. The nomination question that was discussed. Before I say that, just something that I had said at a couple of previous meetings. Sometimes we don't recognize that these meetings become very public. And only to say that sometimes we get a little casual, and we shouldn't, and we all know that, so I'm not saying anything that we don't know. But sometimes we sort of get out over our skis, as they say, and perhaps we want to pull back after the toothpaste is out, You can't. So With that, I would only say this, that the number of years I've spent on this board, which exceeds 25, I don't ever recall hearing any nomination for any committee being refused. I leave that. You can say your memory is not what it was, but I don't believe that there's a situation where a nomination was rejected. Thank you.
Commissioner Curry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Through you to Scott. Scott, could you provide information regarding water rates that was presented at one of our last subcommittee meetings to the person who spoke during the public
That
comments?
was the briefing on the 2023 budget.
Pardon me?
That was the briefing for the board on 2000.
Exactly, and to show that MDC's water rates are the cheapest in the state. We anticipate going down next year, when in fact some of the other water companies are going up and have got approvals for, what, 20 to 30% increases?
Yes, Scott Jellison, yes. So we are proposing, which been referred to finance, we are proposing to provide a flat increase, zero increase to ad valorem to our towns, all right, member towns this coming year, and we're proposing to reduce the water rate by 29 cents. The other issue I think that was being addressed was probably related to the clean water surcharge. And the clean water surcharge, as we know, is actually now more than the water rate. So it'll be $4.15. So we do acknowledge that the Clean Water Project has doubled the water bill, but the water rate is without a doubt the cheapest water rate in Connecticut.
By a large margin.
So we're very, there's a lot of hard work that went into that, but yes, the Clean Water Project is an expense that unfortunately only the Hartford region is paying. There's the other cities in the state have yet to really initiate any significant clean water related projects mandated by consent order from the state of Connecticut or consent decree mandated by EPA. So
Just let me add on to what Scott said. We also went through in the last 15 years a significant drop in our water sales because of conservation. You used to have a toilet and it was 9 gallons to flush it. It's 1.5 now. Everything we're using, from washing machines to everything else, has reduced the consumption of water. That means that when we stop, we sell 65 million gallons a day, and then all of a sudden we're down to selling 50 million gallons a day. It's a substantial impact on our revenue stream. But it's conservation and it's progress, and that's what we're about in this world. So conservation has had a major impact. And I'm not saying it was a bad impact, but you don't sell water, you don't get revenues. And you still have basically the same infrastructure to deliver it. So combine them all together, we're still better off than anybody else in the state of Connecticut in terms of rates. I saw Commissioner Adel, then Commissioner Torres.
I just wanted to report, my wife and I attended 2 hazardous waste collections in the last few months now, and both of them were run beautifully, well, smooth. Everybody was so polite, and the last one we brought our puppy with us, and we got all sorts of positive reviews on her. But
you're only allowed one.
Oops.
I'm kidding. I'm being fun.
You should see my basement, all the paint cans over there. So we're doing the right thing for the environment, but they did a great job, and I just commend the staff on that.
Commissioner Torres.
Yes, I just wanted to also, perhaps for the folks that don't realize that we're still owed millions of dollars by the state, that we are paying for things that we shouldn't be paying for because the state won't allow us to stop this waste. Colebrook being one of them, the landfill, the new garage. These are millions of dollars that are owed to the MDC that could be used to offset and lower the rates of all our participants with the MDC, but the state of Connecticut still owes us money that we are now trying to, through litigation, get them reimburse what the MDC is owed. And that's millions of dollars, millions, tens of millions.
Further comment? If not, the proper motion is in order. The move for adjournment, is there objection? Without objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.